Okay, so this all started when I was looking for ideas for a personal story segment this week. A note came through the mailbox of my house. It read, "Please call. I have a story to tell. I was the youngest person in Britain in prison. I have owned my own shop tattooist. Escaped from 3 prisons. Extraordinary life story. Please phone. Steve Sped." The note was handwritten, half print, half script, filled with spelling errors, 0 punctuation marks, random uppercase letters, and select phrases were underlined. So I called to see if he would tell me his story for the radio show, and he happily agreed to meet me at Weatherspoons down the street for the following day. He was desperate for someone to share his story with, and the only thing he asked from me was not to judge him. It's time to meet Stay, and I head out of the house and down the street. I'm nervous. I've never knowingly met a criminal before. I've never met someone who's been to prison, let alone a prison escapee. I'm scared. I get to the entrance, and a man with a broken nose is sitting there. He puts down his cigarette and asks, "You looking for Stay?" "This is Storybook UK. I'm Lorraine Metz." We take a seat inside, and he offers me an envelope that he scribbled some notes on. "Gave away at birth, took back at 3 for money. I was 14, living 23 hours a day with murderers such as Mary Bell. My friends smashed Strangeways down. I was in Borstal, couldn't help." He puts a sad face. But the sentence that caught my eye the most was underlined and capitalized. "The child that wasn't wanted." I ask him to start at the beginning. He says it began with his mom. It was hard for her to cope on her own as a single mother who had just moved from Glasgow to Preston. She thought a boyfriend would make things easier.
This was the trouble. She got a few different people over the years of me being 5 to 12, and a few of these different people used to beat me and my brother up. And one in particular, the last time that we could put up with it anymore, he tied me and my brother up, and he beat us up. I was in one bedroom tied up, and my brother was in another bedroom tied up. And he'd come in, beat me up until the record finished, and then go in and beat my brother up till the record finished. Did this for about half an hour until he'd had enough. And that's when it really began then. As in, we weren't prepared to stay at home with my mother, and her choice of whoever boyfriend they were.
This is when Steve starts running away from home. He skips school and gets in trouble for stealing and fighting. He's taken into a court assessment unit to be evaluated for 6 weeks. The verdict comes in. The court gives their accounts on the events and rules that he is fit to return home. But then something unexpected happens, and the ruling is blocked.
And then my mum had to make a ruling on it or not. And she stood up in the court and said, "No, I don't want him to come back home because I won't be able to control him." And then they had no alternative then but to take me back into the care system and make an order of the court that I'd be in the system until the order of the court finished, which was when I was 17 and a half years old. Well, I was 13 then.
Now I'm hooked. This boy, who has been on his best behavior for 6 weeks with every intention on returning to his mom, has been told he'll spend most of his teenage years in the system. The first thing he does when he's brought to the care home? He escapes. One afternoon, the boys are allowed to play cricket on the grounds. Steve whispers in a boy's ear, "Hit the ball far, towards the train line." And wham! The ball is whacked far into the distance. Steve shouts, "I'll fetch it!" So he starts running for the ball, and then just keeps running. He hops over a fence and spends the next few days living on the streets, sleeping in barns and unlocked cars, before he's caught again. The years pass and the cycle continues, escape, then capture. Many times he's put into secure units with child criminals in an attempt to stop him from escaping. He tells me stories of becoming brothers with the boys he's locked up with, including one who had lit his house on fire, burning his grandparents to death. He talked about the fascination of being in the same prison as Charles Bronson and watching him climb up a drain pipe to get to the roof of Walton Gaol, where he smashed it to pieces. He also tells me about love, marrying his girl Sue, who he had protected from a bully at age 11. He tried again and again to get his life together for Sue and their 3 daughters. He talked about his failure to stay clean, like when he quit his printing job in Leyland to sell heroin with his brother. And yet, despite all these terrible things he'd done, I wanted to tell his story, from how he became a criminal to reaching past that life.
I live with my wife, but one of my children died of a drug overdose. That's how ironic, me being the drug dealer, that my daughter dies of a drug overdose. I went to her inquest last week. They told me it was a heroin and drink induced overdose, and I thought, how ironic is that I do that for a living at one time, and then my daughter, which is the ultimate penance for doing that, my daughter dies of it. So I'd never ever be involved. I don't take drugs today, and I'd never sell drugs again for my ultimate penance of losing my daughter. And I had a flat in Preston. I left the flat in Preston after my 2 daughters said to me, "Dad, can you come back and see my mum?" Because she's totally heartbroken about Shauna. Because the daughter in question that died, she lived for maybe 27 of the years of a 29-year life with her mother. It was always together all the time. So although we all felt it and we all feel it on a daily basis, she kind of feels it a bit more than us. But we're just learning how to cope now.
He told me he cleaned up in recent years. He was no longer a liar or a thief. As our interview came to an end, he looked me in the eyes and asked me, "What do you think I could have been if my parents had loved me?" I wanted to share Steve's story and make him a hero. He grew up without a family, without a home, without a childhood, but finally, after all these years, he was making progress. He had changed. Unfortunately, the story ends there, in the draft stage. We'd made several arrangements to meet up, and each time, Steve stood me up. At first, I was devastated to learn that on the way to meet me for our final arrangement, he instead went to a pub. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But that's just the nature of the beast. Nothing is without its faults, and perhaps I expected too much from a man with such heavy burdens. I can't make Steve a hero. I can't share his adventure and say he has his happy ending, although I hope one day it will all come together for him. But he needs to try. We all need to try in order to make changes and find happiness. Today's program will reflect this process, finding out what's important to us and what makes us happy.